Why don't we, while we're waiting, have those who are participants, if we could, introduce themselves first, and then and maybe a little bit about your life. If you're not from St. Paul, where do you live, so on and so forth. And then we'll jump in and say a prayer, and we'll jump into the presentation. So I'm Bill O'Connell, and I went on the mission trip.
We're here.
So Patty, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Patty Schrader. I live in Ankeny, but I'm a long time member of St. Paul, and I went on the mission trip mainly because Sue Van Essen said, "Aren't you going?"
Oh.
Sue recruited about half of the members of the trip, I think. So Sue and Lauren, why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Sue, Lauren, Van Essen, longtime members of St. Paul, and wanting to do a mission like this for years and years. And so finally we did it.
Awesome. Okay. How about Whitey and then Jerry?
Hi, Kathy.
Hey, Stang. I always wanted to do a mission trip also and wasn't able to do one previous one 20-some years ago. So happy to do this one.
Awesome. Jerry?
Yeah, this is actually my second, or Jen and I's second mission trip. We, where did we go? Oh. We went to Costa Rica, and we have feedback here because my wife has me on a second
I just
device. But
Yeah.
we had a good time.
Good idea.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, except we do have feedback. So if that doesn't work, you may need to crunch in together.
Okay.
Okay, Del.
Have Jana turn off her speaker.
Yeah, that would probably do it. Del, you want to tell us who you are?
Used to go to St. Paul. This is my husband, Rick. And Sue Van Essen said, come along on the mission trip. So I do go to Ankeny Pres right now.
Awesome. And we were glad to have Del with us. David Penny.
Penny and I heard about the mission trip from Sue, and we've enjoyed having our granddaughter attend Bible school at St. Paul's, and thought a mission trip sounded great, and glad we did.
Excellent. Okay. And Vicki, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Vicki, and this is my husband, Duncan. I am tied with Sue and Lauren, so of course I was recruited. And I've been a number of mission trips, and we all had a great time.
Awesome. And Jana, I think you're the last to introduce yourself. I think. Oh, you're muted, Jana.
We went on a previous mission trip and got a lot out of it and wanted to do another one.
Awesome. Did I miss anybody?
This is Faye and Larry. We're friends of Sue and Lauren, Penny and Dave, Jill, Rick.
Awesome.
We want to see the pictures.
Awesome. Okay. Pictures are coming. Pictures are coming. Why don't we say a quick prayer, and then we're going to jump in if that's okay. And so let's pray. God, thanks for gathering us together online. And we're excited to learn about this experience, this trip, and all that was done and all that was learned, and just the way you met us on this time. And bless us now as we come together. And everybody said together, amen.
Bill, why don't we have everybody mute except for you to start with?
Thank you. Actually, yes, everybody except for Sue and maybe myself. And if any mission trip members want to jump in, certainly feel free to do so. But we're going to ask the participants, if you could, or the folks who are here learning, who didn't go on the trip, if you could hold your questions to the end, we would appreciate that. And that's not because we're interruptible. It's just because the technology, as you know, if you've done many Zoom meetings with large groups, the technology gets a little clunky when you have a large group and people are trying to jump in at different times and so forth. So if you can kind of hold your questions till the end, we will happily answer. But Sue's going to kind of take us through our experience here. And so we go.
There is chat available also, and so you could note something on that if you.
Yeah, if you wanna put something up on chat, that would be fine, or something to talk about later, that would be great. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Without further ado, we're gonna get this thing going. Yep, come on. Okay. There we go. Okay. Sue, take it away. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Sue. I think you have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Back to that sign of Guacio. That is the little borough outside of San Sebastian, Puerto Rico. And that was our destination for the week. It's a little camp that was built in 1936 by conscientious objectors. But now it serves mission groups like ourselves and children during the summer in camp. So, you know, we really wanted to kind of look at those and serve those in need and really cultivate a value of serving during this week. The dates that we were there were February 26th or 22nd through the 29th. It was nice and warm. In fact, it was pretty hot during the day when we worked. And so it just worked out really well as far as weather and everything. And a big thanks goes to Ian Mays, who's our mission elder at St. Paul Presbyterian. He worked for about a year in advance to get this started for us. Okay, that's the van we picked up at the San Juan International Airport. Thank goodness we only had 12 of us because it was a 15-passenger van, but there was absolutely no space for bags. So the last the last seat was used for the baggage. But we waited for everybody at the airport to arrive. Of course, we reinforced ourselves immediately with authentic Puerto Rican food. Some of their dishes, I mean, this is just one of their dishes. It was a giant stuffed avocado with chicken. That's chicken on the top. They do a lot with plantains, savory and sweet. One of their famous dishes is mufango, which is basically a fried plantain-based dish. It can be savory or sweet. Lots of rice and beans. Fresh fish, lots of fish. The food was really pretty good.
The avocados in this were about grapefruit sized.
They're huge.
They were just massive.
Now this is Pastor Bill at the wheel, although Dave Milburn shared the load a lot during the week, and it was no easy task. The interstate wasn't bad because signs were well marked, but when we got a little like 2 hours west of San Juan, we really hit the windy, curvy roads, and we were going after dark, and so GPS, thank goodness for that, it did work that evening. However, we arrived pretty late at 10 p.m. and one of the stewards of the camp, El Guacio, Millie, met us there at the camp and got us settled that evening.
Separate blankets.
After a good night's sleep in our bunks, which you'll see next, we woke up to this view, and I'm telling you, it's just breathtaking as far as lush and green, and there were horses down there, and just all kinds of beauty surrounded. This was the Campamento El Guacio.
The Guacio River.
And it also follows the Guacio River down there. The camp itself is way up there on top of the hill, but even further up from the camp is this beautiful chapel that was lit up too, as you see, this is a dusk picture. It's lit up at night. It was just a beautiful setting for our group to do our God's sightings and reflect on our mission, conclude in prayer, and just take in all of God's beauty and the opportunities we were having each day.
And the God sightings was, we would just get together and we would just say, well, how have you seen God today? And there was never, ever a shortage of ways that we saw God move. At the end of the week, we kind of concluded where haven't we seen God? So it was really a powerful part of the trip.
That's a good view of the dorm room there at the camp. Actually, there were 6 bunks. This is just a view of the 4. And there were each room had their own bathroom facility, but the mattresses are pretty hard, but that's what it was for the week. And there's an outdoor view of the dorm. There's a better view on the next slide. But as you see, the camp was built in 1936. Locks and things weren't the best. And we call these prison door locks because they were locked with a padlock, and we had a key to go in, and no one lost their keys, man.
If you did, they would lock you out.
Yeah, if you did lose your key, like Lauren said, you would be locked out.
Or locked in.
Or locked in. So we had an orientation by the camp director. Her name is Wilmari Vargas. She actually lives on site there, and she's there right there at the projector, and right next to her was her interpreter. She was actually very good with English, but kind of shy about using it. But she was telling us her story of Maria, of the hurricane, and all the lives that were affected, and just what happened immediately after. So Maria happened in 2012. The biggest tragedy probably was the fact that it lasted for 36 hours, 3 days. This monster covered the island, and it's, winds of 155 miles per hour, estimated 2,982 fatalities, $90 billion in damage. And then what we found out from one of the speakers that we had later that week was some of the fatalities didn't actually happen during the hurricane. It happened because people had no access to medical facilities. I mean, there was no electricity on the island. They didn't have access to their meds, no food, no water. You just can imagine if you're even in a somewhat fragile state and you had no access to help, you would perish. So, I mean, we had to think about this number, and it's just astonishing.
A lot of the towns are very mountainous. A lot of Puerto Rico is very mountainous, and where we were was mountainous. And a lot of these small communities were completely cut off from the mainland and from civilization for some like months until they could clear the roads and get access again to the communities.
So Maria was 2017, not
Oh, I had that. Sorry.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah, 17.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad.
We didn't get that corrected, do we?
Nope, that's my problem. Sorry.
So this is the view of the camp director I talked about, Wilmari's, right outside of her house. This is the first person she saw after 3 days who came in to try to help her clear debris. She and her son were trapped in her house for 3 days before they saw this person. But she was very instrumental in opening up the Camp Guacio to the local community. They started out with getting the generators, and we found out from direct experience how important generators were, because our power went out during the week we were there. But provided generators, they got water going again, and the water is from a fresh supply, spring supply. right there in the mountain. The water was great, but of course, once again, they didn't have access to it. Counseling, food distribution. She got a washer and a dryer, so the community could do some of their laundry. And one of the biggest things she did was fundraise to get an ice machine. And you think of that as a luxury, but it really wasn't a luxury at all. It was to provide people with ice to keep their food somewhat preserved and keep it from spoiling. Also to preserve their medical supplies and their medicine. So it really bonded the community through Guacio. And Guacio really wasn't adapted to the community quite well before this, but looking back on it, she said it was the small blessing, this whole ordeal, and the community ended up relying on Guacio. And just FYI, Guacio is about 600 people population, and San Sebastian's around 29,000, the community that it's associated with. Just a little borough. Here we are in our blue shirts. Our blue shirts say Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, and on the back was Out of Chaos Hope. We were right in front of La Posada de Angeles, which is the lodging of the angels. It's at the church, the Presbyterian church in Unesco, Puerto Rico. That was one of our first days on a site to work. Left to right, there's Dell Kanapka, there's Patty Schrader, Whitey Stang, Pastor Bill, Jana Foley, Sue Van Essen, Penny Milburn, Lauren Van Essen. There's Penny's sister, Vicki Jack from Oregon, Jerry Foley, and Dave Milburn, Penny's hubby, and Duncan Kiltner, who's Vicki's hubby. Duncan and Vicki came all the way from Oregon to serve for the whole week. So we were pretty cleaned up at this point. We were looking pretty healthy there.
Vicki and Duncan crossed 4 time zones.
Yeah, Vicki and Duncan crossed 4 time zones to get to Puerto Rico.
Any of you some of the participants have stories about wearing the t-shirt and people coming up to you? Want to share that?
Well, Susan said it.
I do. This is Jana. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. One day we were at a park, I think it was Rincon, and just out of the blue, a man came up and hugged me. It actually kind of startled me. And he said, I just want to thank you. And he was probably in his 50s, and he was with a way older couple. And he said, I'm here visiting my parents. I'm from the States, but my parents live in Puerto Rico. And they told me how much the people in the blue shirts have done to help them. And they want me to thank you from, the bottom of their hearts for everything the Presbyterian Disaster Fund is doing. And that wasn't the only time. Jerry and I were out walking the bakery, and somebody came up and thanked us. I think Jerry and I had 3 times that different people, strangers, thanked us when they saw our shirts. So they, the Presbyterians had a big impact there.
Pretty cool.
This is back to the camp again. Some of these are a little bit out of sequence, but this is where we gathered for our meals. There's the kitchen and the cooks were there. But this little gal here, his name is Millie, and she is a childhood resident of Guacio and went to camp here as a youngster. And she was a steward for sure, and a maternal influence for us. As far as giving us background and help if we ever needed anything during that week, from towels to whatever, Millie got it for us. But she's giving us the camp history here. And that Sunday we worshiped with the local community, and this Iglesia, Presbyterian Church, is right on the grounds there of the camp of El Guacio. And it was kind of cool because this particular day of worship, they were celebrating 58 years of being there, their anniversary. So afterwards, see the lovely flowers on the table. They had a little buffet for us and their congregants. And here is during the service, they celebrated birthdays. And guess who had a birthday while we were in Puerto Rico? That guy, that gringo guy there in the blue shirt. So Dave was embarrassed and had to come up, and he was standing next to, I think, a little 4-year-old girl that's not there in the picture, but it was her birthday too. And everybody's saying happy birthday to Dave. And that's one of the lay leaders, Ivan, up there, who became one of our stewards too during the week. And here's another lay speaker. He gave one of the sermons, and he was delightful. He also interpreted after Spanish into English, so we really could enjoy his message. It was about Jonah and the whale. But the music was lively and entertaining, except for this part. Pastor Bill had us share a simple song in Spanish. We did practice once, but it was kind of a monotone type song, and we didn't really want to do it, but I think they appreciated the fact that we tried, and they joined in after the last verse and helped us out.
Look at Patty belting it out.
Yeah, Patty had the microphone. She was the diva.
Don't believe that for a minute. If you look at our group, there's only one person who's even in choir at home, and that's Whitey. The rest of us are not in choir, probably for a reason.
Where was Whitey in that picture? Oh, there he is. I see him.
We told them that what we lack in talent, we make up for in heart. And they all laughed. They totally appreciated it.
And this is the pastor, the actual pastor of the church, Pastor Iris, who was just lovely. And her message was not interpreted in English, but we could kind of get the idea. Some of the local members. Yeah, it was a week before Easter. And they have the same ritual that we do at St. Paul. They meet and greet. And oh my gosh, this lasted for about 5 minutes. And they were, the sambas and the bongos were going, and the music was going loud, and we were greeting and shaking hands and hugging, and all this is pre-corona, so we had no idea.
And they wouldn't stop until everybody met everybody. You had
Right.
every person's hand, had to shake every person's hand. It was kind of cool.
This was before we started the work week. On Sunday we went to a local attraction. It's a Gazalandia waterfalls, and it was just gorgeous. However, it was 100% humidity and raining. I mean, we were soaked to the bones. And then afterwards we went to the town center of San Sebastian to the historical center, and we were guided by Ivan and Nellie, who are taking us through the sites. There's a part of the historical center.
Which was the mayor's house.
Which was the mayor's house, right. Then this kind of gives you an idea of our mountain roads. Once again, the GPS didn't work always, and we spent a lot of time in that 15-passenger van, didn't we, folks? But some of the vehicles honked before the blind corners. We did see washouts, but thank goodness for Dave safe driving and Bill safe driving. It was an experience in that van.
Yeah, we almost always had 2 or 3 GPSs running, and we're comparing which GPS was giving us what we thought was the best direction. And if 2 of the 3 would agree, we would say that's the one we want to go with. But there were a couple harrowing moments. Dave was driving once, and I think I was asleep or something, but I understand that that they clipped our mirror, the driver's side mirror. Is that right, Dave?
Yes, they came going around the corner. I hit the brakes and slowed down and got over as much as I could, and their mirror hit ours. That was a God sighting for me. Not to survive that.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where your life flashed before your eyes. So the next is a video, and it's about 30 seconds of give you a sense of the hairpin turns and some of the road conditions after the hurricane. See if we can get this going. Don't worry about the sound because there's not much to hear, but the video will show you.
The roads look much wider there than they are. This is 119.
119.
That 119 was on there. Sunday?
Look at the guardrail hanging.
In some places, if you hit the guardrail, you would have already been over the edge of the road because the guardrail was pushed back about 10 feet.
Yeah, and who knows how long it took them to get the roads to be even in that good of a condition. When we first drove in the first night, we saw that guardrail like at 10 o'clock at night, you know, and I tell you what, I was just like, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into? It was just like one of those harrowing moments where you're like, whoa, did you see that? Did I just see what I just saw? It was kind of mind-blowing. It was kind of mind-blowing, but they were there. All the roads, they were there.
The pictures.
Go ahead.
The pictures make it wider, seem wider than they really were. Those roads were narrow.
Yes, they were.
And part of that, where there's the concrete barrier on those curves, there was nothing under the concrete there. That was hanging out over eroded. It was just in the air. So again was thankful that that the pavement didn't give way while we were traveling.
Yeah. So we actually did work during the week. This is in Unesco, Puerto Rico. It was about 2 hours from Guacio. Once again, a nice ride in our lovely van. But this is the First Presbyterian Church of Unesco, and it had been damaged quite a bit from Maria. It looks pretty like it has good bones here, but our primary assignment was to rehabilitate the children's room there. And this is the powerhouse lady that we met that kind of guided us through all this and managed our work. Her name is Adelise Luciano. And she's kind of giving us an orientation here and some of the history of the church and some of the teams that have been in prior to us to help rehabilitate and giving us an idea of what our work would look like. And that's her brother, and once again, Millie was over there from the camp just to make sure we had everything we needed. And so this is one picture of the inside of the children's room. It had, how tall were the ceilings?
Oh, 15, maybe 15 feet.
15, 20 feet ceilings, and the whole wall and everything had to be resurfaced. This work crew was going through every book in the church library. They had some damage from water. They were cleaned, and then we put them into water resistant boxes and labeled the boxes. So that's kind of the results of our work there. Kind of moldy. Termites. Penny and Patty there scraping. We all were scraping. Wire brushes and scrapers. Kind of sticky work. It was warm there. And Lauren's on the ladder there. That's not our color choice, but that's what the color of the room is going to be. And the reason why that little swatch area was being painted is because the air conditioner was going to be mounted there. And we didn't get to see it mounted, but that section was prepared and ready by the St. Paul team. And there's Adelise during the work day with Penny and Dave. Once again, making sure we had everything we needed. She would run out and get whatever supplies, although they had quite a few supplies there on hand. But some people got the experience of riding with Adelise. And I think that was a trip in itself. Don't you think, Dave?
You might say Adelise had several bouts with cancer.
Yeah, and Lauren reminded me that Adelise had I think 15 surgeries for cancer. And she's quite the survivor, and tour de force down there at Unesco, instrumental in providing all kinds of relief funds and supplies post Maria.
Also, her car was had been was multiple time survivor of numerous incidents. She warned Duncan and I not to slam the door, and if I slam the door one more time, she's going to smack me. Which, she did slow down to about 45 in the 35, so it was nice that she did that for us.
I think that the best way to describe Adelise is that she was a force to be reckoned with, a force of nature.
Yes.
She was a whirlwind of energy and activity and love.
And Jana, I think you've had some communication with her, haven't you?
Yes, what a darling person. We've talked on the phone, and she's now sending masks and shields to my son, who's a CRNA. And oh, she's just awesome. She told me a lot about what's going on in Puerto Rico now, and with COVID, and they seem to be very well prepared because they've had enough disaster and they weren't going to let that happen again. So she was telling me they have curfews. If they go anywhere, they take their temperature when they go in. And I believe she said in their whole town, they've only lost 4 people, which is unfortunate, but still a low number. So she's a really nice person.
Yeah. And this, again, is just a good idea of what the walls look like. We were basically preparing that for the primer and the paint. Looks pretty rough, but that is, there was a tremendous amount of water damage there. One of the fun projects too, outdoor projects, is the girls painted a chalkboard for the kids. It looked pretty ancient to us, but it was going to serve the classroom. Yeah, and full of termites. We replaced wood on it. And La Posada now, as a result of this tour de force, Adelise, has been renovated for mission groups, and it was really quite lovely. They had individual dorm rooms with very modern bathroom facilities, air conditioning, and this was just the open area. And I know Duncan looks like he was really relaxing, but he earned every second of that. He worked. We got the sweat equity out of you, Duncan.
We didn't get to stay there.
Yeah, we didn't get to stay there.
Duncan and Dave are two most construction experienced, and they really did work super hard. Everybody worked super hard, but we really picked their brains a lot.
Yep. And this is on the beach. Afterwards, I think it was at Rincon. Beautiful beach. Had a fun afternoon. And this was actually back at the Guacio during the week on Wednesday. It was actually Ash Wednesday. And this is the day all the camps' electricity went out. And it stayed out for the whole day. Although the generators, thank goodness, worked. We had coffee in the morning and breakfast. But they were having a service outdoors for Ash Wednesday. And then all of a sudden it started raining.
If you look at the top of that picture, that's the chapel. out there.
Yeah. And this is Pastor Iris leading the service inside. And there were no hymnals, no bulletins to follow the service. These people had memorized hymns from the book of Psalms. And it was quite the chorus inside this conference area. It was beautiful. They sang. And the primary emphasis of this evening was, again, a presentation just designed for us. We had Pastor Evan, who's there in the wheelchair, who was the head of the Puerto Rico Emergency Relief Fund. And he spoke about post-Maria and getting help to residents in very remote areas. And right next to him is Ivan, who was a lay leader in the church and also one of our stewards for the week. He was interpreting for Evan. And lots of stories about courage there.
Pastor Ivan and his wife Millie just dropped everything and hours and hours they spent with us, driving us through these windy mountainous roads, taking us to the beach, helping us get to our work sites and so forth. They were just amazing people and so kind, so friendly.
I think he was previously a superintendent of schools, wasn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
retired.
And this was our darling mascot for the week, Can. You see a lot of strays in Puerto Rico. They actually look like they manage life pretty well. And this one in particular, she was a doll. And she was very well trained. She was not able to go into the kitchen area or the area that we ate in, but she would dutifully stay outside and take all the scraps we brought her. I'm surprised she wasn't 50 pounds. And on to another work site for the week. We worked on a hydroponic farm in the town of Lares. And once again, look at this scenery. This particular, I looked it up. I think this is the elevation of around 4,000 feet up here. We really climbed to get to this location.
3,900.
And this is the owners of the hydroponic farm, Cesar and Lourdes, who I think I know Dave has been in contact with them and communicating with them still. They were lovely. She is originally from Boston, but he's a Puerto Rican native. She spoke very well, English very well, and he understood a lot, but delightful. And the hydroponic farm originally, prior to Maria, had 15 greenhouses. This is one that's being constructed again, and those are coffee plants. And Maria completely ripped out all of their coffee plants.
Maria ripped out almost all of the vegetation. They said when they came out, they were just shocked at how barren their beautiful mountains were. But didn't they say that within 3 months, almost all of the vegetation had regrown?
Yeah.
For me, it's difficult to explain the beauty of the island and the lushness of the island. It just absolutely spectacular. A lot of houses perched up high, and one of the kind of reflections we thought about was, who's really rich and who's really poor in this world. A lot of the people, may not have a lot of money, but they have this spectacular view. Looking out over these gorgeous valleys and just happy and wonderful people. So it just kind of made you think, what's important in life.
And there's one of the standing greenhouses that remain standing. So one of the jobs was to power spray all the mold off of the screens. And I don't think Pastor Bill liked this job very much, but it's kind of repetitive. But notice the 2 mounds on each side of him. Those were fire ant nests. And so luckily those things were pointed out to us prior to doing that. But Jana took a turn at this and I took a turn at this. We got her done. And once again, inside some of the greenhouses that were still remaining, they grew these tiny little peppers, these red peppers. And these are the passionate pepper pickers with Patty too. We picked and picked and picked and had these bags provided for us, and they wanted us to fill the bags. Each bag would weigh approximately 60 pounds. And PB came up to pick up the peppers. And so their industry included not only selling the peppers, but making it into a marmalade. And they employed local senior citizens, a lot of them widows, who took the peppers, they took the seeds out of the peppers so they could plant with them again, and made it into this marmalade that we got to taste. It's actually kind of a sweet tasting marmalade you would put on a cracker. And this is another job the group had for the week. This is again on the location of the hydroponic farm. There were 2 homes that needed to be completely rehabilitated, and there was power washing, the roof needed to be sealed, scraping, painting, cleaning, appliances needed to be pulled in. There's actually 2 units in each of these homes. So they're going to be used for people who need temporary residence because of their situation, that they don't have a house or they need to get back on their feet. So Lourdes and Cesar are going to provide this for the local people.
In addition to the hurricane, just shortly before we arrived, there was, if you followed the news, there was several major earthquakes also in Puerto Rico. And so they were kind of reeling, not just one natural disaster, but really 2. And a number of the seniors had lost their homes in the most recent earthquakes.
Dell and Whitey got to paint this lovely color that they'd already picked out on the pillars. Jerry cleaning windows one by one.
And Jerry kept talking about mofongo the whole week long. And we kept saying, Jerry, you've got to try it. You've got to try it. And he never tried it. It was really disappointing. He was all bark and no bite at all. Wouldn't even take a bite of the stuff.
That's because it wasn't on pizza.
Yeah. Italians don't eat a mofongo, apparently. Don't have it at the shore.
This is Alberto and Dave. Alberto is still employed at the farm. They don't have many employees yet still because of their resources, but he was quite the laborer and spoke very little English, but could really direct our group and help out in a lot of ways, provide the muscle.
And he looked like a fool.
We painted on the inside. Actually, this is this home that you just looked on the outside really looked pretty good after we left. It was pretty cleaned up and painted. And this is back on just across the street from this home is the farm, kind of an open area. Once again, it's open because the doors were blown off. But this is where we gathered for our lunch. And the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance Team provided our lunch and brought it in to us every day. It was delish.
And we were hungry. By the time it came time to eat, we were ready.
And this is kind of a good view of the roof of this house. Dave is power washing. I know Lauren and Jerry, Pastor Bill, they all took turns doing this. It was hot work up there. But the black is what was before, and this is what it looked like afterward. There's Jerry actually doing the ceiling with his burqa on.
And Sue, it's interesting that they had run a hose from the farm across the road over to this house because the poor folks didn't have enough money to turn the water on until they were able to rent it. Because we said, why? We couldn't understand why we didn't have water to work with. It was right running in front of the house, but they just didn't have the funding to turn it on. And so, but a week after we were there, they were able to provide two families housing that had their homes damaged in the earthquake. So they are in use now.
That's awesome. That looks clean. That looks really amazing.
I think this is actually before the ceiling went on.
Uh-huh.
Just a word, it was hot up there, as Sue mentioned. The weather, what was it? So we're late February, and what was it, guys? 82 up to maybe 88, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So our comment was, we chose the right time of year to come, because if it was, 85 degrees with probably 90% humidity in February, can you imagine trying to do some of the work that we did in July or August? It would have been almost unbearable.
Duncan came up to help for a while there too, because you guys, Bill and Lauren and Jerry, it felt like it was about 110 up there in late afternoon when you guys were finishing.
Yeah, the great thing was that oftentimes there'd be a little breeze and you'd be like, thank you, Lord.
This is number 2.
Yeah, now this is unit 2. It was just down the road. Once again, it's already got a habitant in the upper level. One of the employees and her mom lived there. This was really the charge of the girls here, Maura and Duncan. So lots of scraping and painting. I think they kind of had to talk her into getting rid of the baseboards. She started to have them paint the baseboards, but Duncan was saying, it's like, get rid of them.
Rotten.
They were rotten.
They were pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. We're on the veranda. There's Rosie, the riveters. And this is the group with Lourdes and Cesar after our 2 days of work there. And once again, the chapel outdoor back at the camp, Guacio, at the night, the lit up cross. It's beautiful.
And those are San Sebastian lights in the distance.
Yeah, in the distance, those little twinkling lights are San Sebastian. It's where we had a lot of our God sightings. This is Pastor Bill after he took a shower, cleaned up. Beautiful sunset again at Rincon, the beach. We're up there on a restaurant.
We went to the beach several times after long days, and it was just marvelous. It was so refreshing, and it was super.
And there's our group, and you'll see in the middle Wilmari Vargas, who's once again the camp executive director and the one we communicated with a lot on a daily basis. And she too was hovering over us and making sure everything went well each day. We got to our locations. Crazy, crazy kids.
Normal camp director had her at the time.
And once again, with the brunch that we had prior to the mission trip, we raised $1,000. And so we're giving $500 to Camp Guacio and $500 to the Iglesia, or the Presbyterian church there on the grounds. So not only did we get to serve that week, we got to provide and donate, which was amazing.
So we wondered if there might be some of the participants who might want to offer any reflections on what they got out of the experience and what it meant to them. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers.
Well, I can start. Gratitude. That was the word that I kept thinking about all the time we were there. Gratitude for what I have versus what we were seeing, but also gratitude because I was able to help in small ways to help them out. And the other thing I'd say is, to a person, everybody who went said, yeah, we'd do it again. we'd do it again. He felt that good about the experience. And the other thing is we liked each other just as well at the end as we did at the beginning.
I would say, it was a work-related thing. We did a lot of work, but the people that we worked with, and they were so kind. I liked the country, but you're remembering that the country is not a foreign country. These are our countrymen.
Territory.
It's a territory, but they are, voting citizens, except for in the national election. But anyway, they're our countrymen.
Yeah, and
I
they're,
would,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I would say that we got way more than we gave, and these people were extremely grateful and never stopped thanking us. And any of you that are watching, if you want to go along next time, think about it seriously.
Vicki or Duncan, I'm wondering if you have any reflections you'd want to share.
Well, I appreciate you Midwesterners inviting us along. Westerner at heart. It was great time. I always, when I any mission, I always come back with the feeling of just graciousness of the people. They are grateful. They have been through a lot, and their faith is steadfast. They love one another and care for their neighbors. And I think some of us are learning a little bit more about this during this Corona outbreak. But yeah, it's a feel good, feed your soul kind of deal. It's great to go and do whatever you can for somebody who can't or doesn't have the capacity or the financial things. And I loved all you guys. You guys were great.
We really didn't know Vicki or Duncan. A lot of us didn't know Vicki or Duncan before the trip, but we quickly got to know them and just came to love them. And it really is true that as a team, we really came together. And there were some real harrowing moments where lesser groups could have easily broken out into loud groans of complaint. I remember one night we were coming back, and I think it was about 11:30 at night, and we were driving around in these mountain roads, and struggling to find our way back. Finally, we came to a bridge, but it was I think it was you had to open up these gateways, and then drive across it. And we all said, "Are we going to drive across that bridge?" We all looked at one another. We're like, "No way." We had no idea what the capacity was of that bridge. And so at 11:30, we turned around and backtracked all the way back until we made it back to the camp, probably about 1 o'clock at night. Everybody just had an awesome attitude. The group really came together, and it really was a joy. Everybody brought something to the table. Everybody brought something. Some had more construction skills. Others we had nurses. Vicki's a nurse, and Jerry's, kept things light, always was helping us laugh. And everybody brought something to the table. For me, it was, looking back on it, it was such a gift, because the week that we returned was the week that really everybody started to really realize that this coronavirus was going to be a thing in the United States. And I remember the week that I got back, it just hit the fan. And we started to social distance and worship, and we just scrambled for a month. But to have this wonderful gift of service and of community and of love and just a close connection to the Lord and creation, just the beauty of nature, everything, to have all of that right before we came back, it was such a gift for us to have that. So those are some of my reflections on it.
I'd like to say, I think, we definitely had a couple of things. We not only could serve physically, feet on the ground kinds of projects, but we were also able to have faith conversations with the people down there. And that in itself is such a bonding thing.
Yeah, I'm wondering if any of the members might want to comment, because oftentimes I have heard people say, really and truly, more could get done if we would just send the money and not go. So I'm wondering if anybody from the group would like to comment, kind of offer a response to that sentiment.
Well, I don't know what to say. You could send the money perhaps more efficiently, and in gratitude to the church, that $1,000 was raised by the church. But it isn't so much what you did, it's what you gained from being there with those people. The friendships, the familiarity, and the relationships that you bonded with.
Well said. Well,
Yeah, I would,
Jerry?
Phil, I would add something that, by actually going to a country like that, you're able to come back and tell other people, about your visit and what you saw, the economic stratas of, the citizens of Puerto Rico. You land at an airport that is as modern as any you'll find in the United States. High-rise apartments along the water that are, you would die to live in yourself. So you see that part of Puerto Rico and downtown San Juan. And then as you trek out into the countryside, you see that, the economics dwindle down. Now, Jan and I have been to Mexico a few times, and it's a different economy than Mexico. Mexico would have more or just as many upper class and a larger middle class, but a very underclass in Mexico, where my impression of Puerto Rico was that the economic strata was fairly even in the countryside. And but they did have their upper class and their middle class, but I didn't see a lot of abject poverty. It seemed like the Puerto Ricans really took care of their own, which I found very commendable. I really like that about those people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say take care of your own, they took care of us. There was not a time when they got together that there wasn't food and lots of it. They brought, they didn't have a lot, but they brought what they could and shared it with everyone.
Yep.
You can certainly send the money, but one of the other valuable things I think with that, and obviously people can decide what to do with the money, and they're on the ground and they know their country, their community. However, I think the other piece of it is the organization and the impetus to get started, to be able to say, oh, look, we got this done. Now, we're up off the couch, we're moving. Now we can go ahead and do this other thing that needs to get done.
I think back to Ivan talking about how depression has now become very difficult. That's one of the biggest problems now, because people are feeling like, now what? What's next? What's next? There's two out of 10 houses are still in disarray 2.5 years after Maria, and that just seems crazy. And it's a lack of money. It's a lack of and that's whether it's in a nice area or a bad area. Bad areas for sure, you're going to have at least 2 houses, but even in fairly decent areas, you would have two houses that weren't, and so the lack of money and I don't know, some type of economic engine to be able to fuel a repair of everything. It's just amazing. We went on the one trip to the biofluorescent bay, and he was just begging us to be sure and go online and give good reviews, and so that he could get the tourists back, because they were just coming back, and then they had the earthquakes and the tourists were disappearing again. Well, now they got the virus, and I'm sure the tourists have disappeared again on him, and that's just got to be awful for them.
One of the things that we learned was not only when Whitey says depression, not only emotional depression, but economic depression. The economy is really struggling to come back in Puerto Rico. And part of the problem is their government also. There's corruption, and they were pretty open in talking about that. But they were marvelous people, but have gone through just a lot.
The other thing I learned was a bunch of older people from the Midwest and a couple from Oregon could get a heck of a lot done in a day or two. And that's the people of Puerto Rico. What they thought was going to take probably 2 days or something, we could get done in a half a day and go, okay, what next? And they were impressed that we could get a lot done in a short amount of time. That was fulfilling, rewarding.
Mm. Well, I wonder if we might want to open it up now to any questions. If anybody has any questions for us about our experience.
I would think from seeing this that it would really be fulfilling to do something like that, and to actually go and see how other people live in other countries, and to realize how much we have in this country and how we probably don't appreciate it like we should. But it was beautiful.
It was spectacular.
And I love the chapel.
Yeah,
I thought that was just gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for showing it to us.
It was just a little chapel. It was pretty.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
Every morning we would leave where we bunked, and then we'd have to walk down a hill, and then down at the bottom of the hill is where we had breakfast. But halfway down the hill was a bench that looked out, and it looked out over the hills and into the river. And I thought that was a great little reflection spot. In fact, they teased me about it because I would stop and sit on the bench and have a moment to look, because I thought it was such a gorgeous, just an absolutely gorgeous spot.
And that was actually the pathway from the top of the mountain down to the river, where they took down trees for the electric line. So that's why it was kind of an open view.
Hey, I was really impressed with how the work that you guys got done. Very, very incredible work. I was a little worried about seeing people working with the black mold and not having masks and such on.
Actually, that was not actually black mold.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, that's a misnomer. That actually was the old sealant on the roof, and it was black. And we had to get rid of the old stuff and strip it down to the concrete in order to be able to put on the sealant and then the final coat of paint. So actually, that was not mold.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Annie. Appreciate a nurse keeping our looking out for our back.
Yeah, there was mold in some of the books that we were cleaning. We did have masks, but it was hot. We didn't wear them the whole time. Gloves, we had gloves.
Yeah.
There was termites in those books. They have a brand of termites down there that we haven't seen.
Hungry
Hungry
termites.
Bill, this is Don. Hey,
Yeah.
I was just curious, in the area that you guys worked, the people that lived in the country around that area, what was their main way of, living, providing a living for themselves and their families? And maybe pretty much through the whole,
Coffee plantation.
outside of the major cities, what do people basically do for a living, more than maybe anything else?
Yeah, and maybe other group members can jump in with their impressions, but as an island, we learned that one of the biggest industries there, it's smaller now than it used to be, but it used to be a major hub for pharmaceutical production. So they used to do a bunch of medication production there. Coffee, and coffee is coming back. And then, of course, tourism is a very big industry, and understandably so. It's a beautiful country in Puerto Rico. Others, I mean, and then there's just all sorts of tradespeople, carpenters, electricians, concrete workers, public servants, just as here, nurses, medical people, just like in the U.S. One of the challenges is so many people, the economy is bad there, and so many of the young families have left for the United States because, of course, they're citizens and they're free to go, and the economy is better in the United States than it is in Puerto Rico. So, for instance, in the church that we went and worshiped at, one of the things we learned is there weren't a whole lot of younger couples because so many have gone to the U.S. So the churches were struggling that way. Because their children and grandchildren were in the United States on the whole, or a lot of them had left because it was just so bad. Others have any reflections on what else people were doing, what they did, how they made a living?
I did, for a point of reference, I wanted to say that the population of Puerto Rico is approximately the same as Iowa. So it kind of gives you, the island is not very big. And so even though out in the rural areas, you don't see a whole lot of anything, they have about as many people as we do here, maybe a little bit more. They actually did quite a few more, but I think they said about 500,000 have left for the States.
Yeah. That answer your question, Don?
Yes, thank you. Interesting.
Sure.
You mentioned the issues with getting medicine and issues with depression and some of the ongoing medical concerns. Is there a possibility that maybe the next mission trip might have a more of a health-related focus, or are there options for that? Maybe helping out or utilizing some of the people with medical expertise later on?
I would think that if we came with folks who specifically said, let's go do a clinic or something along those lines, I would think if we had enough notice that we could probably work that component into any trip that we would do. So we'd have to check with Presbyterian Disaster Assistance and confirm with them. But I would say that there would be a possibility that could certainly happen. They seem to be pretty flexible. They have something like 20 different work sites in Puerto Rico, and many are in San Juan, the largest city. But we went to a more rural mountainous community, and it was a very interesting experience. My general sense is that if we go back, we will probably try a different work site. And I don't think it's a question of if we'll go back. Honestly, I think the question is when we'll go back. And we're really just like everybody, everything's just so unknown right now. We'd love to do it again in next February, and Lord willing, that might still happen. But given the realities of our situation and their situation, who knows? I wouldn't think that we would want to travel until we had a vaccine for this coronavirus thing. Would be my general suspicion about the way it would come down.
Yeah, I would also add that it would be good to, if we did go back or when we go back, that we extend our visit and spend some money in the country, because tourism is probably the best way that they can get back on their feet, besides, the help that we would give them physically to rebuild and to do those tasks, which are wonderful. But I think if the whole group, if we would extend a week and be a part of Puerto Rico for an additional period of time, that would be an immense benefit to them economically. And it's a great place to go. We went there years ago on a company trip and had a wonderful time. So it's a beautiful country.
Yeah, and part of the beauty of going there, is you don't have to get any foreign currency. They take dollars. Most people, especially in the tourist industry, most people speak English as well as Spanish, and indeed a number of us did stay. Sue and Lauren and Vicki and Duncan, they stayed, I think, 3 or 4 days afterwards.
3 days.
3 days, and Whitey and I stayed 1 full extra day and did do some of the touristy things. It really is marvelous, marvelous country.
Funny story about that tourist day. We were touring their famous fort, which was built back in the 1700s, and it's just amazing. And so we were going to plan to meet Whitey and Pastor Bill. So Penny and Dave and Duncan and Vicki and Lauren and I set off, and we were let off by a taxi at the wrong location and had to walk all the way around the perimeter of this huge fort. The whole time Pastor Bill was saying, "We're here in the walkway, we're here in the walkway." And I kept saying, "We don't see you, we don't see you." Well, we found out later that there are actually 2 different forts, and they were at a different on the other side of the waterway. So we never did find each other, but we both toured the fort.
Maybe they got the same cab driver, and we got left off at the port, not the fort.
Sounds like directions weren't their forte.
I don't know, maybe it was a better cab fare.
I think it was a language.
Speaking of language, you guys mentioned that most people, especially in the tourist industry, would speak English or had some English. Did anyone learn Spanish? Or if anyone did learn Spanish, who learned the most Spanish?
Pastor Bill, Susan.
I had reviewed it. I know Jana has had background in it because she has done mission work down in Mexico. So she was probably, after Pastor Bill, the more proficient one. And I could understand quite a bit, but my expressive Spanish is limited. Once you are immersed in it, I think I could do a lot better. 1 week wasn't enough.
Yep.
Couple things I learned. Jana is a crazy packer. If you want to go anywhere, get some packing tips from Jana. She's amazing. And I think Sue learned a lot of Spanish.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I took a little child's backpack. That's it.
And she looked like $1 million every day.
Oh.
That's
Hello, Captain.
Yeah, this was to the
Illuminary.
Biofluorescent.
Uh-huh.
Bioluminescent bay.
Bioluminescent.
that was a lot of fun.
It was psychedelic water. You got in and there was microbial organisms in the certain area of the water, and you would actually, if you splash, you could see that sparkles underneath the water. It was the craziest thing I've ever experienced. And the water was, we were at pitch black night by the time we got into the water, And it was so warm and it was so wonderful. Nobody got cold. It was great.
I don't know if anybody's here anymore.
Mhm.
And then that was one of those God things too, where he was a very God-like man.
The captain.
Absolutely.
He was a religious person. He had shirts and you could just tell that he believed. He was a believer. And it's pretty neat.
We have a night picture of us, Pastor Bill took. We didn't put it into the slideshow, but it actually kind of showed the underwater effects of the illumination. It was magical.
You're muted, Bill.
Oh, there it is.
There you go. So there we are on the bioluminescent. Here's just some of the other scenery around that evening.
What was that?
And here's some of the forts, and we didn't include a lot of these pictures, but you can just get a sense of the history of Puerto Rico. It's right along the trade route between Europe and Africa, and so this area has been fought over
South America
for centuries. And so we went to, you just get a sense, this is one of the 7 wonders of the world. What was it called again?
That's the outside
Oh,
wall.
what was it called?
I'm drawing a blank on it. But
Me too.
Just spectacular stuff. So anyway.
I think it was El Maro, started building in 1500s?
Yeah.
1500s?
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to respect people's time, and it's 8:23. Any other closing comments or questions? Well, I'm just so grateful for everybody who took time to come and hear kind of our story. Part of our joy is kind of in being, is telling our story. And part of I think the calling that has been laid upon us is to tell our story and the people that we met and the work that we were able to do, but above all, the relationships that we formed and that we hope to, and we already have maintained, and we hope to continue to maintain. So with your permission, I'll close us with prayer and I'll let everybody get out of here, okay? God, thank you for bringing us together, and how cool it is in an age of social isolation that we can still do things like this and that they work pretty darn well. We're grateful for that, and that we can, for a moment, take a break from our stresses and look at another nation and another people and another part of the church and a part of the world and learn what they're going through and how much we're alike and how similar we are and how much we have in common. We're so thankful for the friendships. We're thankful for each person who gathered here. We pray for the people of Puerto Rico as they're going through now yet another crisis, kind of their third one. And as we're going through the COVID-19 ourselves in this pandemic, just be close to all of us, God. Help us, God, to do our best to love our neighbors in ways that are appropriate here and now in our situation. And we just pray for this world. We really are one world, God. At the end of the day, we're so much alike. We may speak different languages, but we all love our children. And we love you as we understand you. And we're trying to love one another. So help us to do that. And everybody said together, amen.
Amen.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, everybody.